This build is the last time you'll have to respec as Zane. Since the start of the game, Zane was always called the Jack of all trades, and that's exactly what this build is all about. You'll have access to all three action skills. Almost any playstyle, any gear, or weapons will work in this build. This is the exact build I've been using nearly every single weapon review, mechanics testing, skill breakdown video, but for some reason I haven't made this into a build video yet, so here it is. The Jack of all trades, the build that feels like it's the way Zane is meant to be played. Swiss Army Knife Zane, meaning you can use any guns, items, action skills, or playstyles with this build. So before we get into it and break down the build, don't forget to like and subscribe for more Borderlands 3 Zane builds, join the Zane Nation Discord channel, link will be in a pinned comment down below, and hit that notification bell to get notified when I post. So let's get into it. So what's kind of crazy and different about this build breakdown is we're really not going to be talking about any weapons at all. I could sit here and name good weapons, but the truth is, if a weapon is good in this game, it will most likely be good in this build. You just have to decide if it's a slide gun or an icebreaker gun. You can really use whatever you want, and it's going to work. Like I said, I've been using this build to post all of my weapon reviews recently, meaning it works well for all of them. So let's go over the skill trees, then I'll tell you guys how to min-max your gear. So these are pretty standard skill trees, except you guys notice that we have some extra points into a lot of the clone skills, and that's where the versatility comes in. This is a fully functioning 3 action skill build. You can use any combination of action skills, which basically also means you can use any anointments on weapons and items you want while playing. The other great thing is this build is ready to swap action skills mid-fight even. So if you are playing clone drone and your clone dies, well guess what? You can click your menu, you can pull out your barrier really quick, and then the great thing is the augments that you select for your action skill are automatically saved. So all you have to do is click on your barrier and put it on the action skill that's not in use, and you're back in the fight. It takes 1 second, and yeah. Now, if you are someone who doesn't really like using the clone, you don't want to use the clone for mobbing, then you don't need Quick Breather or Old U, but it's very important you still spend 15 points into the clone tree, and I still recommend picking up Fractal Frags, because it is the best clone skill by far in my opinion. But basically, the goal in our clone tree is to spend just enough points to unlock Doppelbanger. That's what gives us extreme versatility. And basically, a lot of people use the Doppelbanger trick to one-shot bosses using action skill and grenade and shield anointments. So that's kind of the main difference between this build and the meta builds, is we wanted to specifically get to Doppelbanger. Now there's one last thing I want to talk about when it comes to these skill trees, and that is playing dirty. You see, we only had enough leeway to not put the full 5 points into this. Now we can actually use a couple tricks to fix this. The first, use a class mod, get some extra points into playing dirty, but it's not totally required. Now the second way is to actually just use hex grenades. Since hex grenades trigger your class mod Seein Dead, you can easily force enough triggers to make playing dirty active almost all the time. And then on top of that, that's why I said to take Fractal Frags with the clone. The clone will literally spam grenades since Fractal Frags is a kill skill. And yeah, those are 2 workarounds. Basically, in my opinion, you want 5 points total into playing dirty, including your class mod. Now for this build, I wouldn't spend more than what I have showing on the screen, and that's because we're trying to make this the most versatile build, to be able to do whatever you want, whenever you want, switch any weapons, switch your action skills, switch your gear, whatever you want. This is what this build is for. And so yeah, if you want to use playing dirty, then you need to find a piece of gear that puts a couple extra points into it. And that's pretty much it for these skill trees. Now, like I said, moving on, we're not really going to talk about weapons, but I'm going to give you guys a few guidelines. Basically, you got to have good weapons, obviously. You're not going to toss on a great pistol and just shred with this build. That's not what this build is about. But if the weapon is good, if it's proven, then it's going to work. The second thing is the anointment you choose. When it comes to Zane, he has a ton of raw weapon damage already. So the only weapon damage anointment I recommend is actually consecutive hits, because that's a very strong anointment. But for example, 100% weapon damage on action skill end isn't going to do as much for us as it does for the other characters. And that's why Sentinel Cryo is usually the best anointment, because it's an actual 100% boost as an element. However, you can use stuff like 125% splash on action skill end, next to magazine anointments, just be mindful while you're choosing your guns with your action skills. Basically, using the clone allows you to use almost any anointment. That's what's cool, is any gun with like a really strong anointment you find, it's going to work on this build pretty much, as long as it's generic or Zane, you know. So, moving on, and in terms of the gear, the first thing I want to talk about is class mods. Since this is the jack of all trades builds, you're going to want very specific bonuses on your class mod. So for example, if you're using a pistol, like the Hellshock, then a class mod with 0 points in Donnybrook, but it has pistol damage, will be better than 5 in Donnybrook without it. So don't focus on the skill rolls. Instead, you guys should farm for specific weapon type boosts that like will basically boost the weapons you're holding. And that's how you get the most damage out of Zane right now. Other specific bonuses like splash damage are always great as well, so look out for a bunch of stuff like that. So moving on, and let's get into the shields. In my opinion, the best just general all-around shield for this build is probably the stopgap. Now, when I say that, I'm thinking about the clone. Stopgap with the clone plus old U is a really good combo that gives a ton of survivability. But besides that, just look for good defensive shields for mobbing. The transformer, even the double downer shield I always recommend to people. And those are for if you're not using your barrier. If you are using your barrier, then I suggest looking for fast recharging shields like the Band of Sidorak or the Big Boom Blaster. Even if you guys have a one-shotter shield, that's great with the barrier because the barrier will allow you to recharge and get more amped shots. So for the artifacts, we usually pretty much only use Snowdrift or Icebreaker on Zane, but like I said, you guys could implement any strategy you want in this build. You want to run a Flesh Melter and Breath of the Dying? Do it. You want to run Cut Purse and Tedior shenanigans? Do it. This is the build for all of that, so just pick your artifact, pick your passives, and you're good to go. Finally, let's talk about grenades. Like I mentioned above, grenades actually trigger the Seein Dead class mod, so my #1 recommendation for mobbing is actually a Hex grenade. Each damage from the Hex will give you a chance at playing dirty, it'll refill your action skills, refresh your kill skills, etc. And the clone can also spam the hell out of grenades since Fractal Frags is a kill skill. Besides that, for bossing, just equip a piss grenade, and yeah, otherwise it doesn't really matter. And that is it for Swiss Army Knife Zane. It is a really simple build, it's a really simple concept. It's meant to be able to work with nearly everything. Now, obviously, there are specific builds that can do certain things better, but with all these recent weapon buffs, a ton of different items becoming popular in the game, I can see this build being very good right now. I also am personally a fan of playing with the clone, but I always build a lot differently for clone builds, and with this one, I don't have to respec. I can play my clone, I can play my drone, I can play my barrier. If I'm in the middle of a fight and I want to switch action skills, I can. It's super simple, super fast, super easy. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys really enjoyed this build. Like I said, I'm most likely going to be recommending this build to everyone who asks me for a Zane build, or the best Zane build, quote unquote, or a meta build. It's only a few points off from what most people are doing anyway, and it works with all the different weapons, all the anointments, whatever you want. So if you like this video, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more, and don't forget to comment down below what you think about this build. Tell me if you like it, tell me what you do like about it, tell me what you don't like about it. Let me know in the comments down below. I'm here to answer any questions. And a big shout out and thank you to my channel members supporting me every single month. I appreciate you guys greatly. Got to give you guys that shout out. But I'll see you all in the next one. I'm out.
And there's a takedown! Time to get paid!
Brilliant work, Vault Hunter! That ass kicking will make Malawan think twice before they come at us again.
Not confirmed.
The So big and bad now, are ya?